squeamish at the sight of blood? Yes? Okay, become an engineer. No? Okay, you should do medical. We see so many juvenile suicides in Singapore because of the academic grades that they have or don't have, that even if you can make sure that it's one less suicide, consider yourself super successful in this effort. And in one of the schools, a mother came up to me and she just held my hand. I get goosebumps just relating this story. She told me, my daughter has just taken the Life Vitae test and she has so many options. We were just thinking of just finishing her school and getting her married. But
ladies and gentlemen, I am back with yet another exciting episode. Have you felt that grades and marks and GPAs are just too shallow to tell your entire story? You, as a student, have gone through so many different life experiences and it gets captured absolutely nowhere. My next guest is solving exactly for this. She has created an AI-driven platform to be able to look at all your behavioral traits and not just tell your story better, but also predict what would be the next best career path that you can take based on your interests and the opportunities and options that are there in the market. She is Priya Sengupta, and the platform is called Life Vitae. In this podcast, we talk about the inception journey of Life Vitae and what inspired her and how she created this entire platform. Today, Life Vitae is being used by hundreds of schools in Indonesia, India, and Singapore, and she has impacted the lives of more than 500,000 students around Southeast Asia. So if you're from a school or if you are a student who would love to get their hands onto this platform, then follow the link below. Until then, enjoy the show. See you soon. Okay, cool. So, how are you feeling today?
I'm feeling great, Priya. Thank you for having me over for the show. And I'm looking forward to a great conversation today, which will be two ways.
Fantastic. Okay, so for the last 7 years, you've built Life Vitae, which has impacted over 1 million lives, million students. Worked with so many different organizations, bringing this back in India as well as Indonesia and now Singapore. So you've built a phenomenal business, right? And I want to start from the very beginning. So, what was the inception, and why did you even think about building Life Vitae?
To talk about the inception, we have to take a few steps backwards in my own life journey. You know my background in academics, I'm not going to repeat that. But once I went into the workforce, I had something which was completely out of the ordinary, an experience. I met with a car accident. And it was a near fatal car accident, so bad that the driver of the car died on the spot. I was sitting behind him and I had a whiplash in me. Which meant that these were pre-seatbelt days when seatbelts were compulsory. This was in the year 1998. I literally bounced back and forth in the rear seat, which resulted in a spinal fracture.
Oh my God.
Yes, which rendered me immobile. And a student to a person who had got the best so-and-so award in my alma mater and, getting like a really high package of salary in my placements, I went straight to being bedbound, and my then employer lost no chance in immediately dismissing me. These were pre-LinkedIn times. I did not know what recourse was in terms of how to go about it. I was already saddled with a medical cost of kind of getting myself back on feet. Yeah. I didn't know which legal counsel to take. And suddenly, from becoming or being an ace stars to I went to becoming bedbound where nobody would even talk to me. I was the same person. I still had the smarts that I had in college. And I suddenly realized what a specific lived experience can do to you. And my entire focus was then to bring myself back up again and get back into the workforce. So keeping that backdrop in mind, That was, I think, looking back, the very genesis of Life Vitae, because I realized that just like me, there must be so many of other people whose lives would have gotten derailed by a lived experience. Two things there. One is to be able to give them that confidence that yes, they can start afresh. But the second thing, that the world needs to be told what resilience is, what adaptability is, how you can go back into where you were in the orbit that you were. And these things are things that academic grades and academic results do not capture. So I did not come from a point of view that, oh, look at me. I mean, I've not done well academically, and that's why Life Vitae, because as you know, Life Vitae also looks at lived experiences. It just doesn't focus on grades. Yeah,
Right.
sorry.
So, what is a lived experience, if you could just explain?
So a lived experience is experiences that are unique to you,
Yeah.
basically your life experiences,
Okay.
an experience that you've gone through, which other people may or may not have gone through, but which has in some way shaped your life.
And shifted
Yeah.
your perspectives
Yeah.
and paths. Very interesting. And in fact, yeah, today, I mean, my biggest qualm with this entire education system is that we are all measured using one metric, and that metric is not comprehensive enough. There's just very much your marks and scores, and it is supposed to determine what you do in life and what you're good at, and it doesn't take into consideration any of these, as you said, life experiences.
Yes. So that was the beginning of the story. Later on, I became a professor both at Ford School of Management as well as Nyan Polytechnic. And I again realized there were just so many stories which were waiting to be told. There were so many lived experiences that needed to be seen the light of the day. There were two students who could be identical on their grade card but were so different because of their lived experiences. And that's how you tell people apart. That's the way that you make understand as an employer, as a future, college, that whether this person is suitable for you or not.
Okay, so maybe this is a perfect time to also dive deeper into what Life Vitae does. What is the product like, and people a little bit more deeper. Yeah.
Sure. Life Vitae was born from the need of the hour, from the fact that less than 1% of the students in the markets that we operate in, which is India, Singapore, and Indonesia, less than 1% of the student base here has access to proper career guidance. Sure, they go through some kind of psychometric tests, etc., while in school, some not even, but nobody really knows where they are going, what careers that they want to aspire for. And pretty often, more often than not, they just fall back on what their parents have told them to do, or what their siblings have done, or what their friend circle is doing, or a distant aunt or uncle who may have succeeded in life, and they just follow their footsteps, not knowing who they are, what they want to become, and what they have internally to facilitate that transformation. That's where Life Vitae came in. Life Vitae provides that guidance, provides that intervention, and provides that assessment early on in anybody's life. Now, it could be a student, it could be an early career professional, or it could be just about anybody. Some of our wow moments have been seasoned professionals who've been around in the industry for a long time, and even they've taken life and said, I wish I knew this when I was growing up or when I was going to school or college. It would have completely changed the course of who I am today. I have an inkling that, yeah, this is what I wanted to do, but I did not have any voice because I couldn't be validated. So in a nutshell, Life Vitae is a tool which provides a direction or a career guidance for anybody taking it. Now, if it's a school student or a college student, so for a school student, for example, we go in as early and tell them what subjects that they could be looking at. For a college student, we tell them which particular course is suitable for them. For a high school student, we tell them which colleges are suitable for them. For a graduating student, we tell them what kind of jobs are suitable for them. So that's what Life Vitae is.
That's very comprehensive. In fact, I remember that when I was graduating out of school, yes, the only options that I knew were the ones that I could understand from my limited capabilities, one of them being engineering. which I ended up taking. But then only after going into engineering, I started realizing that there are certain aspects of engineering that I like, but what I actually enjoyed was way different from what I was doing in engineering. And I think that, yeah, so that's what I call my quarter life crisis.
Yes. And there's so many, sorry, I'm
Yeah, go for it.
interrupting you, but there's so many like us, I would say us, because even I'm from an engineering institute, and so many of my ex-classmates are not doing what they graduated in. And that's because engineering was just one of those things that those of us who were good academically were just herded into taking the engineering entrance exams.
Correct.
And if you got through,
Yeah.
that was validation enough. What did you need anything else for? And it's okay if you go and are miserable. It was like, if you try to tell anyone that I'm kind of miserable, people said, are you crazy? You're in the best engineering institute in the world, definitely in India. And why would you even want to drop out?
Yeah.
And there were several people who were stuck in that bubble. And our generation was a lot more resilient. But as the new generations come in, there have been sad stories of this affecting mental well-being.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry.
So I absolutely agree. And I'm glad that, there is a tool like Life Vitae, which helps you do this. So just to break it down further, so I understand that there is an assessment aspect of it. And then after that, after you have the assessment, it recommends certain career paths to you. Like this would be ideal based on your assessment. This would be good. And also areas of improvement and areas where you are strong in, right? How does all of this work in the background when it comes to the tool? What is the data that you guys use to be able to recommend these, or, just explain the concepts also?
Thank you for asking that question. That's a very relevant question.
Yeah.
So we have actually developed our own AI model.
Okay.
So we don't use the market Gen AI models, which may hallucinate after a point. We have developed our own AI model based on data science algorithms that we've come up with from the scratch. Then our recommendation engine then tells a student or a youth or a user what they should be getting into. Now, to do that, we have our own homegrown databases. We are hyperlocal if it is required, and we are also global. So when you said that we recommend activities to a person if they would like to, for example, improve in a certain skill, we do not go and tell them things like, oh, learn to play the violin, for example, for a student who's sitting in a village in Uttar Pradesh. We would tell them hyperlocalized, contextualized solutions that they can very easily undertake. So the whole platform is based on the UNWHO life skills model. And from then we draw the interface or the interplay between skills and careers.
Wow. Okay. That is then a lot of data, a lot of work a lot of proprietary work that you've developed over a period of time. How easy or hard was it to do this as an entrepreneur?
One of the things about me, I'm self-aware, and people say, is that I can jump headlong into any problem, and I really break it down, and I break it down to an Excel sheet where you start from the topmost left-hand corner and build from there. In my previous avatars, in my jobs, I have done stuff which people have just looked at me with their jaws open. Like, in one of my previous projects, I've gone into the Kolkata Municipal Corporation attempting to digitize and put all that data on a machine, and I've succeeded to some amount of degree. There was a time I had to sit and do the valuations of certain hotels in one of my jobs where nobody knew anything about that, and I started from, again, the top left-hand corner of an Excel sheet. Large problems don't intimidate me. I have the capacity of breaking things down, and when I break them down, I just look at what my day's work is going to be. I just focus on what I need to get achieved today, and I sleep very peacefully knowing that I have achieved it. I don't think about tomorrow I've got to achieve so much. I'll think about it tomorrow, and that's how I got it done. Today, LifeVitae database, we've got close to 5 million data points, and we built it from zero.
Wow.
Yeah, and when I asked a few industry leaders, they said, are you crazy? You're going to map everything down? But we just did.
Yeah.
We just did.
This is crazy. 5 million, and we were just talking about numbers before we started off with the podcast. So give me a sense of the scale that of impact that Life Vitae does today.
Okay, so we are in a very big way in both India and Indonesia, and we are just starting off in Singapore because Indonesia was my tabletop experiment.
Wow.
Whatever I do new, I start in Indonesia because that market really gives me quick feedback and I can change course and I can do course correction very easily. Although I don't speak a word of Bahasa, we're a very strong team in Indonesia and they have been a dream team. And so in Indonesia, for example, we've now touched about close to 250 schools. We are now getting into universities. We've now touched large corporates. We, like a telecom giant, we've also been part of a CSR effort of a very large conglomerate. And that gave us the confidence to go into India. And in India, again, we are now working with a few very large B2B players who deal with students. So in terms of impact, if you were to ask me, close to about 650,000 users.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
That is huge. I mean, yeah, because this is such a comprehensive concept. It's not like hey, I'm going to just put up a picture. It's an assessment. It's very comprehensive. It's not just a METI. I'm sorry, but there are a lot of assessments that don't map your life.
Yeah.
Right, and this does, which is very exciting to me. Okay, so so you've been building this for the last 7 years, right? And what has this journey been like? Maybe you could tell me of a time when you've had like the biggest or a moment where you could see Life Vitae's impact directly. Maybe something like that.
Sure. The journey of an entrepreneur is never really one big moment. It is always a summation of a lot of small moments. So there was a time when I went to a village in Uttar Pradesh and we were doing a demo in a school. And in those days, those were early Life Vitae days, we were going through the proof of concept phase still. And in one of the schools, a mother came up to me and I happen to speak the local language in India. And she just held my hand and she said to me, I get goosebumps just relating this story. She told me, my daughter has just taken the Life Vitae test and she has so many options. And, we were just thinking of just finishing her school and getting her married. But now I might still get her married, but I still know how to make her self-reliant and financially independent because there are options which she can do even while in a marriage. Because you have to understand, you have to contextualize. You can't ask a girl from there to suddenly go into space, I mean, she's still in that context, she's still got her familial duty. She is still tied by the societal norm. And she was telling me that, with Life Vitae, with the recommendations, with the suggestions, I can still see her being self-reliant. And what is giving me the goosebumps is not this. She told me, I wish during my son's time, my son is older, and during his time, he could have taken a tool like this because he was good in studies. He was good academically. The mother was relating that they come from a farming family. Her husband is the only income, generator in the family, and he's a farmer. And she said they wanted a better life for the son. So everybody told them, oh, he should become an engineer. And he went into one of the state colleges to become an engineer. And he graduated, but unfortunately, he couldn't find a job. And after 3 years of trying, he's back into farming. And that really, on the one hand, with the daughter's story, it made me feel that, oh my God, this is the real impact that we are chasing. On the other hand, it made me feel so despondent and the fact that, oh, I'm so late. I wish I could have started this earlier. These are just one of the stories. There are so many stories.
It's a beautiful story. It's beautiful. Great. Now, like you spoke about you coming from, an analytical data consulting sort of a journey. Are you seeing that, your past life skills that you used to have and you honed, did you use that in building Life Vita?
Yes, definitely. So I am a numbers person. I mean, anybody who walks past me would know that. Anybody in my team would know that. But what is something not that well known about me is that I am a very detail oriented person. I mean, editing is one of my, superpowers. My content team is the one which is the most scared of me because I can walk past a document and it's not something to be proud about because in today's day and age, I can do that. But that's my superpower. I'm extremely detail oriented. I mean, I can really zero in. I can go from that big picture to that small little thing in seconds, and what usual eyes can miss, I can do that. So these two things parallelly have helped me a lot. The fact that numbers don't bog me down, this building this whole database, giving direction to the data science team, giving direction to the coders, it does not scare me. Algorithms don't scare me.
Right.
Making flowcharts don't scare me. So that's my entire first part of my life training that has come into play. And my second part of my life where, I have delved deep into documents, delved deep into valuations, delved deep into other consulting assignments have come in to help me in being a generalist, so to speak.
Beautiful. I'm curious. So, you've had a very fulfilling career before, and we heard about your inception story. How and why did you decide that, okay, now is the time I need to start Life Vitae? What was that story like? How did that happen?
Okay, so Life Vitae happened organically. It was a voice inside me which was bursting out, needing to be heard. But I went through it quite systematically. I had been out of the academic circle for a while before Life Vitae started, and I knew here was a product that I was thinking of which would really affect or change the course of so many students. I was going into academics and I wanted to back that up with science and reasoning and logic. So I went back to school. I did a course in entrepreneurship.
Wow.
Yeah, so I said, yes, I am what I am. These are my experiences, these are my educational qualifications. But for relevance, for being here and now, and for knowing what works, what does not work. And let's face it, during my age of training, I was nothing. We used to call it fuzzy logic at that time.
Oh my God, it's been a while.
Oops, did I just give out my age? But so I went back to school. I figured out what works, what doesn't work, what is this entire beast of CX and UX.
Yeah.
What is this entire thing that this generation is excited by? How to capture that 5 minute seconds of concentration that this generation has, after which they will move on, which needed me to go back to school. I did not profess to know it all. So yes, I've had a career, I've had a fulfilling career, but I had to start afresh. I learned everything again.
Wow, wow. So, which school was this?
This was at SIM. So they have an entrepreneurship. I realized everybody else did entrepreneurship boot camps. And I knew I was so jaded and I was so rusty. I needed to have proper classes. So this was the only one which had 6 months of classes and then followed by 6 months of coursework. And that's where I enrolled, and Skills Future came in.
Like a 1 year.
It was a 1 year thing. And that is when Life Vitae was formally born.
Okay, okay. Wow. So it was during that, and maybe you were already honing this idea at that
Yes.
point in time while you were learning how to do it and how to
Yeah,
execute.
so I actually started deeply thinking about it because I took a career break, and during that break, I went into volunteering in a very big way with the PA, with the People's
What's PA?
Association.
Okay, People's Association.
In Singapore.
Okay.
So I worked with community centers, particularly with Jaichi Community Center. It was part of an effort by the IIT Association. At that time, I was the social secretary there, and we wanted to give back to Singapore as an alumni association for Singapore, having given us so much. We wanted to express our gratitude, and this was the 50th year of Singapore. Quite metaphorically, it's the 60th. So that was the 50th year of Singapore, and I just reached out to people at PA actually. Very blindly, I walked in and I said, hey, this is our organization and we want to give back. And they said, okay, how? And, it's the PA is not short of money because the government funds the PA. And they said, how do you want to give back? And we said, we only know one thing, which is academics, so we can give back academically. Right. And they said, but Singapore academic system is one of the best in the world. So what are you saying that you will become teachers? And we all have jobs, right, in the day. And I said, no, we can't be teachers, but what we can do is we can help students after school. So they said, okay. And quite by chance at that time, the then Speaker of Parliament was constituting something called the Homework Club. And it was supposed to be the first homework club in Singapore. So the Chai Chi CC under the Marine Parade GRC was constituting something called the homework club. So the PA called me and said, would you be interested in this? By then everybody else had dropped. So I was the only person left. So I said, yeah, okay. Because, when we constituted it, a lot of people said, yes, I will come and yes. Yeah. And then, what happens, travel and this and that. So a lot of people had dropped out. So I said, yes, I will come. And the then Speaker of the Parliament was heading this effort. And I remember he told me in the first briefing meeting that, Priya, we see so many juvenile suicides in Singapore because of despondency and because of children who come from underprivileged background, because of the fact that they feel inadequate, they feel shame or whatever because of the academic grades that they have or don't have, that even if you can make sure that it's one less suicide, consider yourself super successful in this effort. Wow. So I said, okay. And I went in thinking, despondency, what despondency? I mean, they're children and there my eyes opened up. There were so many children from the underprivileged sector, children basically from broken marriages, from teen pregnancies of mothers who did not want them anymore and who had left them abandoned with their grandparents, children of ex-convicts who had stopped going to school because of the shame and the whole reputation, children from, and all of these children would come to me and would sit down, and every time I asked them, what do you like in school? They would say, I don't like to go to school. And that's where we started. And I worked for 3 years on and off in this effort. And in fact, the other person in the Singapore office who works with Life Vitae is also from this effort that I met him at that time. He was very young at that time. He was 18, but he was a big volunteer in this. I realized that the children slowly turned around. From a point where they would say that I'm scared of math, they suddenly started saying things like, I want to take mathematics in uni. Can you help me? Wow. Yeah, and I would ask them, so what made this change? And they would say, I like the way you tell stories. Oh, wow. And I said, so your stories, like, what was the name? I would talk, I would engage them. I realized that it was basically a concentration issue. I've been a teacher, right, along with my corporate jobs. I realized it was a concentration issue more than a capability issue. And once they could concentrate, their capability would take them through. So this whole notion of, oh my God, I'm really bad in math was a notion in their heads, because then they started paying attention to what I was saying, and I would and I've not been a primary teacher. I've only taught business schools. This was my first challenge with primary kids. They were pre-PSLE kids who would come to me, and they would suddenly do well in PSLE after being written off in class, and they would start looking at me like I've done something which wasn't true. It was they themselves had done something. And I started realizing in teaching them and in guiding them that I was bringing something about in them where they started understanding themselves better. They would have this notion, somebody would have talked to them badly in school, somebody in class, some peer say, oh, you're good for nothing. Oh, look at your grades, ha, ha, ha. And they would start, they would internalize they would internalize it, and it would grow out of proportion in their heads, and that they would give power to that. Yes. Very beautiful, because just in the two podcasts earlier, we were talking about how important it is, the first 7 years of the child. Exactly. That's where everything is
internalize,
Yeah.
and then they start manifesting from
Yes,
that
and
point.
that's what they would start manifesting it, and then that cycle is very difficult to break after a while. I mean, after you're 13 or 14, it becomes near impossible to break.
Right.
And that's when I realized that they need a voice. And, the only voice people are equipped with right now is their grade card.
Yes. I'm so annoyed with it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I come from the other side of the grade card. I actually had a stellar grade card.
Yeah.
So I'm not saying this from that perspective that, oh my God, I didn't do well and therefore why should everybody look at. I had a good grade card and still my grade card couldn't tell my story. So imagine the people who don't have a good grade card.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Actually, speaking about grade cards, my story is a bit like when I was in growing up in school, had pretty decent, actually really good top of the class grade card, come to NUS, and I realized that I wanted to experience life more and not chase a grade card, which is what I had been doing pretty much in school. NUS, when I started experiencing life more, my grade card started falling, and I was like, no, this is not the story.
Yeah.
But it's because I have grown so much actually in NUS, and it's not telling my story. Then SMU, the shift happened actually, where I was like, I'm not going to worry about the grade card so much. I know it's going to be fantastic, so let's keep that aside. I'm going to still go and learn everything that I want to learn. I was a dean's lister. That was a
There you go. There you go.
so this from my life experience, and also what you're saying, I think it's all these other behavioral factors that Life Vitae also tracks, right, which eventually leads to grades being just an outcome. Right. So you don't have to chase it. It's like in business, you don't chase the money. You take care of all these factors and the steps, and then the consequence is there is value, and then it's just all clicked for me. So fantastic.
This is wonderful. I mean, you're just putting and articulating it so beautifully.
Amazing. Thank you. Okay. No, going back to your story. So that happened in those
3 years, and I was also teaching at Mian at that time, and I realized that there are just so many stories that need to be told, and there has to be a way, a structured way, a quantifiable way, because the world doesn't really the formal world doesn't really pay attention to stories. Stories are still considered so much fluff. And there has to be a way of quantifying these stories. There has to be a way of modeling these stories or structuring them so that the formal side of the workforce, the formal world, actually pays attention to a human being or an individual who's telling their stories. And that was the second major hump in the genesis story of Life Vitae, which is when I realized that the moment is here. I need to do this now.
Right. And you realized this, right? And what happened after that?
Yeah, so after that was a series of events. So as I told you, I went back to school. I did my entrepreneurship course. The second half of the entrepreneurship course was actually coming up with a business idea. Now I had this idea. And I wasn't really sure whether I should use this as a project or should I do a dummy project and then use this later. And the dummy project idea wouldn't happen to me. So I just said, okay, let's just go with this idea. And I ended up building a website. So our 1G website was built at that time. And then a lot of series of events happened, which in any entrepreneur's life happens unplanned. Like, it was almost serendipitous. People came out of the woodworks to help me. Like, I come from 6 schools. I'm a product of 6, and these are high schools, like from my primary to, secondary education, basically. My primary and secondary education, I've been to 6 schools. People who I hadn't been in touch with, but I'm just part of a WhatsApp group. I would in those days just write a little synopsis. People came out and helped me. They said, I know the principal of this school and I'm going to get you introduced to this principal and you pitch your product. And that's how we pitched our product in one school. And they said, they were okay for a pilot. Another friend who I didn't even overlap time in school with, she happened to be in the WhatsApp group of a class that I was part of at some point, but at different times in our school journey.
Yeah.
She said, hey, guess what? I'm the principal of this school and I'd love to do a pilot for you. And she did a pilot for me. I come from a very tight class of 120 students. from my business school at IIM. And I again wrote a blurb in my IIM WhatsApp group. And while 119 of them, or rather 118 if you take me out, ignored it, one person stepped out and said, Priya, I will help you and I will put you in touch with this person. And that came up. You were one of those people who I had no idea. I mean, I had never known you. We just, our paths, I don't know, I can't even remember today. I was thinking in the morning that how exactly did we meet?
I think I dropped you a message.
Yeah, saying our names are the same or something like that. You went through our tool and it resonated with you somewhere.
Yes.
And you referred us to a very, reputed college here. And then we went and pitched. SPJN, and we pitched and we got. So there were a series of events. I was nominated because I was a woman and I had just started a startup in AI, and I was nominated by the High Commission of India, and there was a little AI enclosure within that exhibition, and I was exhibiting there, and there was an Indian delegation there, headed by Professor Jaishankar, who was on a state visit, and he happened to stop in front of our booth, and he looked at the platform because the platform was on a rolling basis on an AV, and he looked at it and he said, you're working with skills, and this is what India is moving towards. Indian education is moving towards. Have you spoken with anybody in the Planning Commission or the Niti Aayog? I said, are you kidding me? No, I mean, I don't know anybody. He immediately connected me with the head of education at Niti Aayog. So things happened. I mean, it's not, I wish I could say that I had a drawing board and I had this strategy and yes, I did, but it all went out of the window because things happened. And that was the beginning of my journey.
Question here, and I think this is a question for a lot of entrepreneurs as they are thinking about starting, and they could be coming from different walks of life. So how did you manage to, raise funds or fund your idea? What was the story there?
Okay, so that's my so-called easy part because I had about 22 years of work experience, known for a while that I would be starting something of my own. So I had managed to put some corpus away, and that's what made me start. But also the Singapore government helped me a lot. Like, the ESG Singapore to begin with, and then there are so many grants available out there, and we have been using so many of the grants, and I couldn't be more grateful for being a woman entrepreneur who's a Singaporean who's had access to the market readiness grant and the CCP, and at every step of the way, the IMDA, when we wanted to build our website, we were really helped. So yes, it was self-funded. The Singapore government helped us, and now we have a very tight circle of family and friends who've helped.
Invested in the company.
Yes, invested in the company.
Wow, fantastic. So on this, so usually what would you recommend, let's say a founder who's starting up, how much, not in terms of dollars, but how much in terms of months or years of runway should they keep for themselves as well as company, and what is the recommendation?
Yeah, so while I'm a founder and entrepreneurship is a high risk, sort of a career pathway, I am super risk averse. So I would panic if the runway fell anywhere below 36 months. I am very closely knit with the founder community here. I have heard stories of how people have come down to their last 6 months and then bounced back, how they've gotten VC funds. But one also has to look at the age group of founders. I think this runway business, it varies according to which life phase you're in. If you're 28, I think 6 months runway is fine because I'm sure everybody feels accountable to their stakeholders, especially their employees who've laid so much trust in them. As a founder who went into this when she was 46, I felt a huge sense of accountability, and it's never dipped below 36 months in my case. But having said that, it's not the norm. So, yeah.
No, I think, so this is something that, because having employees, having a team is a big responsibility.
Yes. And I felt a very huge sense of accountability there. I'm still very, very accountable to my team.
Wonderful. And on the personal side, when you were starting up, how much months of runway did you keep for yourself and say that, this is the time that I'm gonna kind of figure out?
That's a very good question because, yes, that I have an answer to. So I said 5 years. I'm going to give this 5 years of my life, and if nothing happens, then it's okay. But what I did not factor in those 5 years was this 5-letter word called COVID. And wow, that took up like 2.5 years in that
Yeah.
5 years. So essentially, the 5 years became 2.5 years. And I was like, oops, yes, COVID, we are one of those rare people that COVID helped us because a lot of things went online. And because ours is an online platform, a lot of people did not mind having Zoom meetings. A lot of people did not mind having Google Meet meetings. And that really helped us.
So on the personal side, you had the runway for 5 years on your side. Okay, fantastic. And what was, so while you are starting and you're working on building your business, family gets impacted very much in positive ways, negative ways, different ways. How was yours?
Okay, so I won't say totally by design, but I did look at choosing a time when we are a couple who has an only child. Our son is in college right now. And I tried to time it at a time when he was going into college. He was actually going into MS. And I realized that my involvement in his life needs to go down. Pay attention to my choice of words. I didn't say it will go down. I said it needs to go down. So I said it won't go down until I totally, look at something else or start focusing on something.
Baby.
Yes, find another baby. And that's when I gave birth to Life Vitae. So it was timed in a way that we were becoming empty nesters. My husband has been fiercely supportive. Very, very. He's been my original cheerleader. He's been my main person that I can bounce off ideas with. He's had a very high involvement in the algorithmic work that we've done in the beginning in speaking with the psychologists. His area of expertise is psychology. Yes, so I'm very grateful that I got that support at home. And time wise, I had a lot of time because my husband is also in a very high intensity work. So, we had a lot of time which I could utilize in this.
Fantastic. No, because I'm glad to hear this because it is so much of the battle won when your family is on board
Supportive,
and supporting you. Great. So I want to go a little bit into why you were creating the product because you spoke about algorithms, right? So product market fit is something that a founder often struggles to find. 1 to 2 years is what they try to give themselves. What was your journey about LifeVitae's product market fit? How did that happen? Then blew up.
Yeah. So again, going back to that AI event.
Yeah.
So earlier on, our product market fit was we were doing these resumes, which were alternative resumes, which was a Life Vitae. So the spin is from the word curriculum vitae. So instead of curriculum vitae, you had another resume, which was a Life Vitae. And together with your curriculum vitae and your Life Vitae, you were armed for the world. And that was the 1G of the product. And as I told you, when we were exhibiting here and when in the Indian Minister Jai Shankar, he referred me to the Planning Commission on Niti Aayog in India, they met me and they said, have you been in schools in India? And I looked at him and said, schools? No, this is a college product. Because resumes, right? Curriculum vitae. He said, oh, but a lot of language that you're using can be very handy for schools, like skills-based education. India was going into something called the new education policy. They knew about it. I did not. This was early 2020. The new education policy came into being from August 2020. They were obviously working on it. I had no clue. They said, why don't you come up with a product for schools? I said, oh, okay, I have never thought about it. Schools is just so huge. In college itself, there was such a lot of data that we needed to gather and all, but schools makes it a completely different ball game.
Yeah.
I came away thinking skeptically, let me see. I don't know. I just heard him out and I came back And this was February 2022. In March 2022, the world shut down. There was nothing happening. And everybody was going through the whole question of whether they would survive this or not. I said, okay, I'm not doing anything. I'm not going anywhere. Let me take a chance at the school thing. And I started the school product. And I said, yes, it's a lot of data that needs to be governed. It's a lot of work that needs to be at the back end. But hey, who's in a hurry? Not a leaf moved outside. Like, everything was at a standstill. Days wouldn't pass. Days suddenly became so long. I had so much more time. And that's when we started the school product. And when we went into the school product, and then when we went into school, the proof of concept was like this, because I realized myself that by the time they come to college, it's too late, because they kind of committed themselves. You can't go to an engineer and say, music, that's your thing. Because listen, there's family finances involved at the most, at the very least, or the most important thing is shame. How do you face the world by saying that, I was supposed to be an engineer, but guess what I'm doing in music now? So what if they were told this earlier on? And that's when I realized, yes, this is what somebody was knocking at my head to tell me that start in schools, because, that's when the intervention is needed the most. And also the fact that in places like India, Indonesia, we started from tier 2, tier 3 cities, because we said the tier 1, the posh schools, although a lot of posh schools did our proof of concept, they gave us pilots, but because they understand the language of skills. We realized that in tier 2, tier 3 cities, there was nobody called a counselor in school. There was a geography teacher who was doubling up as a counselor, who had no idea of the student who was walking up to him. And he or she would just randomly tell them, become an engineer, become a medical doctor, if they were good in their studies
And science.
And you know how they decided on that? They said, are you squeamish at the sight of blood? Yes? Okay, become an engineer. No? Okay, you should do medical.
Okay.
Yeah, get down to that.
No, that was a wonderful story. Okay. And that's how. Yeah. Okay. So at the end of the day, LifeVitae found its product market fit through the counseling portion of the schools.
Yeah, but we also realized that it has to be democratized and it has to be cheap. There are school guidance counselors on app, AI based, a dime a dozen. But what we have stayed true to purpose is the fact that we do it really cheap. We are not a social enterprise. We are for profit, but we give back. We do it really cheap. And that's what has made us fly off the shelf.
I love it. This is wonderful.
Yeah.
I can already think of some schools should be in right now.
I'm so excited. The real conversation will happen after this.
Yes, not on record for now. But beautiful. Okay, so usually towards the end, I tend to ask this question: do you believe that your thoughts create reality in doing things? Yeah.
Yes. I'm a constant thinker. Which is not such a good thing, by the way. I wish I could blank my mind and sit, but I can't. I think, and a lot of times I have realized that what I'm thinking then gives shape to some of my actions. So, there is a scientific way to it. I'm thinking, I've analyzed stuff, I'm logically preparing a thread or creating a thread, and which is what is driving us forward. But yes.
And do you think that our energies here are creating the serendipity that you mentioned?
Definitely. I think I'm a big believer in paying it forward. And actually, this was something that a fellow entrepreneur had told me, that the many a times people who come and help you are never the people that you can help back.
Paying it back is
I did not know how to upload CPF. And I remember a very successful entrepreneur now who was also at some stage of, he was about to take off, like, his journey had started earlier, much younger guy. We sat in the same incubator center. He said, okay, I've kept this afternoon aside for me, ask me questions. And he literally handheld me to tell me. I felt so stupid asking him these questions. And he literally told me, okay, you do this and you download that and then you do this. And there was no need for him to do that. He's like a much younger guy. Okay, fine, if he had an afternoon off, he could have caught up with his buddies drinking beer, but he chose to spend that time with me, teaching me the ropes of how to file employee CPF. And this is just one example. And I believe that this whole cycle or the circle of serendipity is fed by paying it forward. You feel as if it is serendipity, but there is a method in that madness somewhere. Somebody is doing something to kind of pay it forward.
The paying it forward is also a medium for you to express gratitude.
Yes. So that entrepreneur, at the end of the session, I asked him, so why did you spend this afternoon with me? Okay, I'm guessing you had a free afternoon. You could have done any number of things. And every entrepreneur's life is stressful. And he told me that, there were people who came out of woodworks to help me. And they have now propelled out of the orbit and they may not need my help. So I'm doing my bit by helping you, and I will get payback when you help somebody else. And that stuck with me.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
And this is powerful. Yeah. What you get paid back when you help
Yeah.
someone. Mm. Nice, nice. Okay, so going to, it nicely moves into the last question. Or one of the last questions is, for an entrepreneur then who is starting out today, what is one piece of advice that...
Okay, I don't know whether I have earned my laurels yet to start giving advice, but the two things that I have based my journey on are integrity and staying true to purpose. Now, I'm squeaky clean when it comes to integrity, and I bring that across in my team. There is a zero tolerance on anything which is out of ordinary. Everything, has to be perfecting in terms of integrity. What is shall be declared, shall be told as it is. So that is one thing. And the second thing is staying true to purpose to our end users, who are the students or the early career professionals who use our platform, not our customers. Because our customers could be somebody else who are buying the product and then
the end users
making it available for these people that we are creating it. So we remain answerable to the extent that we have a phone number and an address at the end of the reports that we put out. The other day, somebody in my team challenged me saying, "Oh, Priya, why are you doing this? Because so-and-so, some so-called competitor of ours, does not put out their address." I said, because we are different. We are accountable. We will stay accountable. Our idea is not to make a sale, collect the money and run away. We will be there for the student should they need to come back and ask us that, but I don't understand this part. Can somebody help me out in the team? So these are the two things that I have based my journey and the business on. I'm still not there to give advice to others.
Fantastic. Finally, what is next for LifeVitae?
So as agentic AI evolves, LifeVitae wants to move from the whole realm of structured responses and reports to fluid conversations. We want to be a person who is always at hand, like a friend, like a coach towards this whole journey of career guidance.
Beautiful. Well, I'm excited to see that version as well of
Thank you for having me on the show, Priya.
Thank you so much for coming.
I'm so humbled and grateful. Thank you for
I'm
this.
so glad as well. This is a fantastic opportunity for me to also listen to your journey more in detail.
Thank you.
Great. How do people get access to LifeVitae today?
Okay, so LifeVitae is on our corporate website is www.lifevitae.sg, and I'm available on LinkedIn, but we are very responsive on our website. We are on all our socials, so we go by the name. We are on all our socials. We go by the name LifeVitae.
Perfect.
Whether it's Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter.
Awesome. I will link all of this for you and find this in the description. And well, thank you so much for coming on the show, and we will see you soon again.
Thank you.